Well, hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in today. Welcome to It's Time for More Injury Funding, the podcast for all who want to learn about legal funding and its significance in personal injury, tracking accident law, wrongful death, traumatic brain injury, slip and fall, and many other types of law practice domains. I'm your host, founder, and CEO of More Injury Funding, the legal funding counselors with a passion for law, medicine, legal funding, and heart for all suffering individuals. More Injury Funding is a host of this podcast, sponsor, member, associate, or business partner of Academy of Truck Accident Attorneys, Sandy Springs Bar Association, Georgia Association of Paralegals, State Bar of Georgia, and Georgia Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. And we're adding a couple more associations coming up soon. And in today's episode, I have very special guest, recovering attorney, professional speaker, and the founder of LawPods, one of the first podcast production agencies for law firms, Robert Ingalls. Welcome to my program, Robert.
Oh, it's so lovely to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So today we'll talk about Robert's transition and journey from becoming a lawyer and later leaving the practice of law to create and produce a LawPods agency that assists lawyers in producing and managing their own podcasts, and how a podcast platform done right could benefit a law firm in unmeasurable ways. And finally, I'll have one pop-up question for Rob today. So stay tuned in. You, my dear listeners and viewers, are here for a treat with Robert Ingalls. So welcome once again, and tell me a little bit, how did you become an attorney and what area of law did you practice?
Sure. So I have wanted to be an attorney since I was very young. I come from a rural area, and the idea of being a lawyer, let them be doctors and lawyers and such, like that's what I grew up with. And I was one of those people from a young age that didn't have a lot of prospects, but had a very high idea about what I wanted to accomplish. I had no idea how to accomplish it. I didn't really understand the pathways coming from the kind of community I came from, but I just had this idea that I was going to do something. And attorney was something I understood. I saw them. They had these fancy Mercedes with the hood ornament and the leather seats, like I can smell it now. And their suits and the respect that the community had for them was very appealing to me. But then the law itself was also appealing. My mom enjoyed watching legal shows. We watched a lot of those together and followed cases, whether it was the serial killers or people that had been kidnapped, the trials. We had a big murder case in my hometown when I was maybe 10 or 11 that made national news. And my mom took me to the courthouse to watch a little bit of the proceedings. And I was like, wow, this is so cool. And that was something that I was drawn to. And for the most part, throughout my life, followed that journey. I took a couple years to do some philosophy and religion work in undergrad.
Oh, that's
but
amazing.
Then snapped out of that. I mean, I'm glad I took those classes. I learned a lot.
Sure.
But I kind of snapped out of that thought process and started coming back down the path, and ended up going to law school and to be a criminal defense attorney. That was what I'd always wanted to do. I didn't have my eye on anything else. Very idealistic, which I don't know if it's a bad thing or not, but I was, and I wanted to save the world. And there was some harsh reality out there when you get into practice. And I was on the appointed list, and it wasn't long before I started feeling like this is maybe not the best fit for me. Now I'd learned through the course of my life, if I wanted to accomplish anything, I had to lean into hard things. Like when things get uncomfortable, things get hard, you've got to lean in, because if it was easy, everyone would do it, right? And so I'm thinking, okay, what do I have to do? I've got to lean in. And I kept trying to lean in, but it was really difficult for me to practice criminal defense with my personality. I don't, people say you have to leave it at the office. I don't have that skill. Everything goes everywhere. When you see me, you're getting my whole self, no matter where you see me.
I can tell that, and I love it.
I like that. Yeah, I like it too. And I was trying to make myself into something that just wasn't working, first of all. But it wasn't also authentic. And the types of things I felt like I was the bad guy in somebody's movie all the time.
Mm.
Like I'd go to court, I would do my job, and there would always be somebody angry with me. Hell, frequently it was my client, but it was also the victims'
Mhm.
parents. I was in domestic violence court a lot, and I have 4 sisters. I'm the only boy. And that was just hard for me to be
Mhm.
championing some of these people. Now, that's not to say I helped some really good people out of some bad
Mhm.
situations. And I feel really good about that. But more often, I was doing work I didn't feel aligned with my values. That doesn't mean I was doing the wrong thing, I don't think. And somebody needs to do that. It's very important work, but it was not a good fit for me.
Mhm. And Rob, where were you born and where did you grow up? What state?
I grew up in Eastern North Carolina,
Okay.
very rural, outside Washington, North Carolina. Some people will call it
Mm.
Little Washington. We in Washington, not that I live there anymore, but call it the original Washington.
I love it. I love North Carolina. I'm in Georgia, so we go to the mountains there quite a bit. Probably every three months more or less. Just rent a cabin and just enjoy the nature. Waterfalls
Oh,
is
it's
beautiful
lovely
up
up
there.
there.
Now, can you share with us your journey from being an attorney, practicing attorney, to becoming a professional speaker and the founder of LawPods?
Sure. It really started, I was struggling as an attorney because I was in criminal law. Within 2 years, I knew it wasn't for me. And I was pretty overwhelmed. And I didn't really know it. I didn't know how to express that at the time. I didn't really have words for it, but I knew that I wasn't doing well. I wasn't making any money. I was really stressed. I felt like I was looking around and my colleagues had it all figured out. That's what it felt like. Like everybody's doing this and I am just barely holding it together. Like barely getting by, barely making payroll, and just it it didn't feel very good. And the what really broke me was right after I got married, my wife came to me and said, I want to have a baby. I'm packing to go on vacation. And she springs this on me. And I say springs it on me because we had just gotten married and the conversation had been, I don't know, maybe we won't do this. We're not sure. And not that I didn't want to have children, but that was future guy's problem. And then
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden it was like my problem now. And I, in that moment, could not take one more thing. And the idea that I was going to have to continue to deal with all the problems I was dealing with and then also have somebody living here next year that I could not financially support at this point just broke me. And once I got done with my proper freak out, I did what I've done a lot of times in my life. And I sat down and I made a list. And at the top of that list was money. Like, kid, you have got to figure this out. And so I listened to a book about money, and
Mm-hmm.
that the author of that book had a podcast. I'd never listened to a podcast. And I'm in the app, and the very next show that I listened to is a show called Awesome Office. It's not publishing anymore, but the founder was this guy, Tom Bilyeu, founder of Quest Nutrition. And he said something that changed the course of my life. And I say that with zero hyperbole. And it sounds really trite, but the takeaway from an hour of listening was you can do anything you want with your life. And we've heard that since the time we were children. You can be anything, right? But it never really meant anything to me until that moment, because I had, through the course of my life, followed the easy path, if you will. And I know it can sound crazy to say going to law school and becoming a lawyer is easy. But for somebody who has the aptitude to follow that path, it's well trodden.
Mm-hmm.
People have been doing it forever. You do this, you go to college, you do this, you apply, you do all the things, you follow it. Your guidance counselor tells you what classes to take, you make reasonable grades, you pass the bar. And there is a roadmap, there is a formula. But in that moment, I went from having this tunnel vision of following this path to limitless possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
And it really was. It was like I had blinders on and all of a sudden I could see everything. And I had no idea what that path was going to be. I knew that I was going to do something different though, like right away. I didn't know what, but I knew I was going to do something different. And I just went off on this path of self-discovery and getting to know myself and focusing on what I wanted, who I was, like discovering who I was, leaning into my mental health care. And within 30 days, I owned this microphone, $1,000 worth of gear. I had something to say.
I
And
love it.
the medium had impacted me in such a profound way. And I just took off. I mean, I'd like to tell you it was that easy. I mean, there was a lot of years in between that moment and this moment, but with struggle and heartache. But it was that was the moment that sent me on this incredible journey that I'm now on.
That's amazing. Now, what would you say are, I would say top three asset podcast, three assets, I guess, that podcast offers that blogs do not.
Sure.
Because a lot of attorneys have blogs nowadays, or in the past, especially in the past, was more prevalent. But what would you say are the advantages of the podcast versus blogs?
So blogs are great. They're very important. You need to get written content on the page. But in addition to having your written content, a podcast does what no other form of marketing can do. It sells you time. It doesn't say, stop what you're doing and read. Hold on a second, watch this. It says, what are you about to do? Oh, I'll come with you. I will accompany you to the gym, on your commute to work, while you're walking the dog or cleaning the house. It doesn't ask you to sacrifice what you are already trying to accomplish. And so it's opened up this world that allows you to take anywhere you go. You can be entertained, you can be educated and informed, you can find anything you want in there. And making content that speaks directly to people where they are is so valuable, because so many lawyers will ask me, one of the first questions with somebody who doesn't understand the medium yet, which is totally understandable, it's still very new. They'll say, who would listen to a lawyer's podcast? And I tell them, no one, until something bad happens to them or someone they love. And then they have questions.
You just gave me goosebumps. So true.
Yeah, because that's when they're on your website. They're not hanging out waiting to see what Steve Thomas, who's the PI guy, does. They're not waiting to see what he's up to on Saturday. They don't care, because they care about their own life. And in their own life, something messed up, something went wrong, and now they need help. And they have questions. They show up with those questions. And that is the opportunity that we're making this content to listen to. So we're not making it to do things that are super fun and interesting that people are going to listen to on Saturday while they mow the lawn. No, I mean, if you're that good at making content that you can compete with Joe Rogan and Brene Brown, go ahead and maybe find a new profession, because you are really good at making content. But for most lawyers, a better angle is to make content that speaks to pain points, that will connect with somebody where they are and help them feel better, because that's what we want. When we get somebody in our funnel, they're ours. And we have to make sure we manage them down that funnel to the point that they set that appointment. And we do that by answering their questions, establishing ourselves as thought leaders, as experts, and making them feel comfortable. They have a problem, something's wrong. And it's our job to make them feel a little bit better. And we've been here. We want them to know we've been here. We know what's going on. And we know what the path forward is. It might not be easy, but we know what it is. And we're going to show you. Come on, come talk to us. And when you give them that content in a way that you can make them feel that way, that's going to be really powerful. Your conversions are going to skyrocket. And that can be very difficult with written content. Written content's great. It's great for SEO. People will read your written content, but your voice, it's really hard. You just said, give me chills. It's really hard to make somebody feel that way on the page. You got to be a really phenomenal writer. And video can be very difficult too. Now, I love video. I like to record video of my podcast while I'm doing it, but I'm not thinking about the video. It's an afterthought. I'm having a conversation with a person. And then I also happen to be recording the video. And But frequently lawyers will look at video as a marketing angle. And I love it. I think video is very powerful, but they'll hire the crew to come in. They'll spend 20 grand on the day. And the videos so often come out underwhelming. And I don't think that's the attorney's fault per se. It's difficult. They get dressed up, they put some makeup on, they've really thought about what they're going to say, and they get the best angle they can in their office. They've got the background's a little blurred, and they are responding to questions that are being asked to them. And it's hard. They put their video voice on.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, it can be so hard for that to be relatable. It can be done really well, and I've seen it done really well, and I think people should continue to invest in it. I love it when it's done well. But it can also be hard for some attorneys to be as relatable, because that's what we want. Like, it goes back to what we were just talking about. They showed up, they have a problem, they want to know some answers, but they want to know that you know, and that you're the person, because they're on your website because they need a person. It's your job to let them know why you are the person. And establishing your knowledge is important. But leading with, we have 9,000 years of experience and we've gotten $1 billion for our clients, all of that's great. But who are you? Like, you need to let them know that you're the person for them. You need to make that human connection. And your voice is so powerful at doing that. People go, oh, okay, I like the way that made me feel. But equally important to me, I have clients that are very brash. They curse on their podcast. That's who they are.
I love it.
Yeah, but I remember when I started working with them, and I would send an email and say, hey, do you want us to bleep any of these words out or remove them? And he was like, fuck no. Like, that's,
I know. I kind of know exactly who that is.
Yeah, that is who I am. And he is not worried about the people that will not call him because of that. This is who I am. And that type of authenticity, and he is not struggling. His authenticity resonates with a lot of people, because a lot of people hear that. That's who they are too.
Absolutely.
This is a regular guy. He talks like me. He's a bullshitter. He is just a relaxed person who understands the world that I live in. He is not some shiny shoe, and there's nothing against shiny shoes. I love to shine my shoes. But he's not that stereotype of a lawyer who's up here, who's just trying to siphon money off me. He's just a guy who's trying to help people out. I get this. And so when he is turning somebody off, it can be very helpful, because he's saving them time from getting into the office, getting into a relationship with him, and then realizing this is not a good fit. This guy's way too much for me. And so making content that really shows who you are can help people know whether you're a good fit for them. I think I've probably gone way past your original question.
Not at all.
But
not at all.
I'll let you reel me in when you need to.
Absolutely. So, and I think, Rob, you kind of touched on this one, but what advice would you give to your listeners and viewers to make them stop for a short period of time and really hear your message as a host of your podcast?
So what would I do as a podcast host to try to grab somebody's attention?
Exactly. When you're talking to your audience, when people are looking to you or at you and listening to your voice, how do you get their attention? Like, do you do anything in particular, or is just like, is that natural? Do you do anything differently, when you're in front of the camera or with the voice recorder versus off? Let's say, when you with your kids, with your daughters, or with your wife, is there a difference?
Well, I'll tell you. I know some people have different people. I bring my whole self everywhere, and I like it. It has served me now that I've found the right places for my whole self. That doesn't mean I have no situational awareness, but my personality is kind of just big and talkative and pretty quirky and silly, and that's who I like to be. But I care about people, and I want people to always feel that. And so I am always the same. But when it comes to making content, I am thoughtful. I'm not just showing up without any concern and just, hey, let's see what I'm going to talk about today. No, I'm thoughtful. I'm always starting with an analysis, and that analysis begins with why.
Mm-hmm.
Why am I making this content? Who am I making this content for? What does that person want to know? What's going on over there that would bring them? What kind of person? And what's happening in that person's life that would make them even be listening to me right now? And if I've gone through that analysis, I understand a lot of things. And now I know what I need to talk about. So if I'm going to talk about the first thing to do after I've been in a rear end collision, I know exactly, like I am putting myself in the mindset of somebody who just got rear ended. They might be hurt. They have a lot of, I know what questions they have because I've been asked 1,000 times. I know all those questions, but I'm putting myself in their mindset and I'm talking directly to them. That's what's going to capture their attention, is an answer to the question. It's not going to be, would you like to hear how amazing I am? You are not the hero of this person's journey. That is not, you are their guide. You are there to help them. Do not position yourself as the hero. Don't tell people how great you are. It's fine to let people know the awards can be there, but they should not be leading. What should be leading is answering a problem, establishing that you understand where they are and answering their problem, speaking to their pain point. That's what's going to grab their attention, because people care about themselves. That's what they care about. They don't care about you. They care about themselves. They have a problem. And if you are the solution to their problem, they will give you their attention, whatever that problem is. If they're bored, Netflix is the solution to their problem because it gives them entertainment. If they are hurting, ibuprofen is the answer to the problem. Whatever pain point a person is particularly having, if you're speaking to that pain point, they're going to give you their attention. And we'll lose them by front loading content. Like if I'm making content and the first couple of minutes are just me talking about how great I am, they're going to lose faith that there's anything there that's actually going to help them. And so that is really what I think about. Why am I doing it? Who am I doing it for? What do they want to know? Mm-hmm. And then whenever I'm making any content, I'm always at the back end thinking, how does this turn into money? Because I don't want to just waste my time. And that, that's a separate conversation as far as building something that can return value. But that is one of the very best ways to get somebody's attention, is get to the point and speak to their pain point.
And Rob, we'll get to that money-making part, hopefully on the next episode, if you want to record another episode with me.
I mean, put a microphone in my face and
then that's it.
You have to reel me in.
I found a friend. I love it. Now, how often do you meet individual attorneys or larger law firms who start their own podcast, put in so much work, time, energy, and money into them just to learn quickly that no one really listens to those podcasts?
Well, and again, I think it comes back to why, because I get the question a lot of what are good numbers? And I'm going to give the most lawyer answer in the world. It depends. It really does, because a lot of lawyers think I'm not developing a listenership. Well, if you're doing FAQ content, you shouldn't be. Mm-hmm. Why would you be developing a listenership? That's like, are you developing a blog readership? Are there people subscribing to your blog that goes to their inbox every day so they can find out what new titillating personal injury things are happening? No, you are creating that content to speak to a pain point, to drive leads down your funnel and convert. And that's where the podcast tends to fit in. Now, that's not every podcast. That's the FAQ podcast. And that really is a lead conversion machine. That's what you're trying to do with that FAQ style. So you're not really looking for high numbers. Well, don't get me wrong. I mean, you want those numbers to be very consistent with your other marketing strategies to help you drive those leads. But people, by and large, aren't returning. People return to Brene Brown, to Joe Rogan. They are being entertained. They are being informed. Every listener that ever listens to one of those podcasts is a potential continuing listener in perpetuity.
Absolutely.
That is not what an FAQ podcast is. It's intended to convert a lead. Mm-hmm. And so if that's not growing and having subscribers, that's fine. Is it effective as part of your marketing funnel? But then there's another form of a podcast. We're both in the trial lawyer space. We work with and sponsor Elevate Podcast, Trial Lawyer Nation, and a number of other PI podcasts. And some of those podcasts, those two specifically that I talked about, are intended for lawyers to listen to. They are educating other lawyers in the community. And some of the things they're doing there is they are gaining know, like, and trust with a lot of people that listen to their voice. I've been at conferences where people will approach the hosts and say, I've listened to every podcast you've ever done. It is so good. It has changed my practice.
I love it. That's amazing.
And that is it's amazing. And I mean, anybody that hosts a podcast, the sweetest words you can say are, I listen to your podcast. Like, oh, that's my love language.
Couldn't agree with this more.
It's so powerful. That person they have nothing but good things to say. So they are spreading the reputation of this person, of this lawyer. But now you have somebody who is a potential referral source, somebody who might bring you co-counsel cases. And so you are driving leads to your funnel through this and elevating your own status in the community, which is also very important with the thought leadership. Like, I am the person who knows the things, you come to me. And then you land speaking engagements, you write books and promote those books through these avenues as well. So that is the kind of podcast you would want to grow. And I'll come back to your original question. If you have a podcast like that isn't growing, the question is, do people know
why?
About it? Well, right, why? But a lot of times it's people don't know about it. What are you doing to tell people? Because if you just publish a podcast and put it on Apple Podcast, nobody's looking for your nobody's looking for your podcast there. Apple's not promoting your podcast. So there's a few things that have to happen. You have to keep at it. You have to create consistently good content regularly, but you've got to promote that content too.
How do you
make sure people know?
How do you promote it? Talking about promotion of the podcast.
Right, absolutely. So there's so many ways to promote a podcast. One of the better ways to do it is to record the video while you're recording the podcast. Very simple to do. And then you can make clips from that video and you publish those to your social media channels, like Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts, TikTok, LinkedIn. Wherever you're active, you're posting these clips and they've got your branding on them. They've got captions on them so people don't have to click it to listen to it. They can read it and see. And they're constantly seeing this content from you and they're seeing you say these really strong, amazing things and going, oh, I like that. Oh, man, I need to think about that for my next voir dire, right? That's really great. And now they know who you are. They're seeing you out there, but they're seeing that the podcast exists out there and that it's got good content. It's got good guests. It's got value because that's what people want, right? We talked about that earlier.
Absolutely.
What is in it for them? Make sure there's something in it for them. Make sure they know about it. And by putting that out there, making sure people see it, they know about it, it starts to accumulate. Now it takes longer than you think. It's a process like anything else is. It's content marketing. It's not going to happen overnight, but making sure people know about it, getting it out there. In a space like the trial lawyers, they're going to talk to each other about it. So those are just small ways that you can really build it. You can run paid ads on it as well.